Thank you for joining us. On behalf of Lumu and Carasoft, I would like to welcome you to today's webcast, Getting the Upper Hand, How an Upgraded Cybersecurity Strategy Helps Alachua County Beat Hackers Every Day. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. Please direct all of your questions to the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. We will do our best to answer all of your questions at the end of the presentation. If for some reason we do not get to your question, our team at Carasoft will follow up with you after offline. This webcast is being recorded, and a link will be sent out in a follow-up email for you to view it again or share with a colleague. We are pleased to be offering one continuing professional education or CPE credit to those that attend today's webinar. In order to qualify for the credit, you must be present, registering your attendance by signing in with your full name, and actively participating in the polling questions throughout the entirety of the webinar. For more information on the CPE credits we are offering, our CPE sponsor NASBA, and the submission process, please visit the link on your screen. If you meet all of today's requirements, you will receive your certificate of completion within 2 weeks. Before we introduce today's presenters, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about Carasoft. Carasoft is the trusted government IT solutions provider and a top GSA schedule holder, supporting an ecosystem of manufacturers, resellers, integrators, and consulting partners committed to serving the public sector. The dedicated cybersecurity and defense team at Carasoft specializes in providing federal, state, local, and education customers with a variety of cybersecurity solutions to secure their cyber ecosystem. Our comprehensive cybersecurity portfolio of products and services can support your organization's needs in the below categories. Our contact information will be at the end of the presentation, so please don't hesitate to contact us for any of your needs. At this time, I would like to introduce our speakers for today, Dr. Chase Cunningham, CISO Advisory Board Chair of Lumu, and Marty Albanese, Network Security Analyst of Alachua County. Chase and Marty, the floor is all yours.
Great. Well, first off, thank you, Carasoft and Lumu, for putting this together. These are always, really useful sessions, especially when we get into somebody that actually is doing the work. We in cyber, as everybody knows, we have a lot of pontification and what we would call thought leadership and things like that. But I'm always really excited when we have somebody who is literally sitting with their butt in a seat doing things to stay ahead of the bad guys. And Marty, if you wouldn't mind, give a little bit of kind of background on who you are and what you do, especially in the context of the topics we're talking about today.
Sure thing. I'm a network security analyst. I work here at Alachua County. I've been here it'll be 25 years in June. Started out just as a network analyst, worked my way up into the security position, and have probably been doing that one for the last 18 years, if not more. I do email, I do the web security are two of the primary things. And really most of the time I'm auditing different things.
And so just for kind of laying the groundwork here, like how much of a tax vector are you guys really, do you feel that you are sitting in? Are you under attack all day, every day? Is it kind of come and go? Is what the marketing tells us, is that what's actually going on with you guys? Or have you had any significant incidents that have occurred that, you've really had to deal with recently?
The attacks, they come on and off. They're usually not every day. You see a little bit of the tickling at the door. The Chinese always like doing it. But being a government and being that politics type thing at the local state, people come and go, they'll knock at the door, but we've luckily haven't had any breaches. I think one time we've had a web page defaced. That's when front page was popular back in the day. But since then, the security's been tightened up. We're putting different stuff at the perimeter to make sure that it doesn't happen. I can't think of any particular case. The last big thing that we took was a DDoS, and you just kind of weather the storm, and we made it through it. We're still here.
Wait for it to ride out. So let's get into your overall strategy a bit. So what is your strategy as far as leading this? And as you've been, growing, like I'm like you, I started out as a network engineer and a sales engineer, and I worked my way through the other side of the equation. How have you changed your approach to cyber in general, and what it is, without getting into something that's going to make everybody uncomfortable because it's your super secret sauce? Like, what is your overall strategy to how you're doing cyber at Alachua County?
It's not to try and do it all by myself is probably the biggest thing. Some of these automated processes are really good. One of the biggest things is learn from other people that have been hacked, that either weathered the storm and do it. You know, it's a lot of it's just keeping up to date on the security features that you can. And sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes you go to gray sites. Sometimes you know avoid the real bad sites. But those guys tell you things. They like to brag about what they did, and most of the time they'll even show you. So you just take the
Yeah,
opportunity to learn each time.
right. The bravado that shows up in those spaces is definitely kind of interesting. How large is your organization, and how many folks do you have doing the work?
The organization itself is probably about, I would say, 1,500 employees. We're spread out over several different areas. Uh, and there is only five of us on the security team. So we are taxed at times, and then other times we can breathe.
Right. And so with that spread and scope, how, yeah, is it getting easier over time, or is there more stuff being added into the mix? And I know that I'm leading the witness here, but like what new things are coming in that you're having to figure out how to deal with?
Yeah, it's hard to stay in front of any of this stuff. It just seems like every time something new comes out, you need a new product. They throw new terms like SOC and all these other different places on it. And what, you know, we used to use a SIEM, and it used to give us real good visibility into the things that we saw, but not everybody on our team could read all that stuff. So you have a SIEM with all this data that's just sitting there sending you alerts, and they look pretty, but the reaction time was way too slow and things like that. So that's where when we ended up purchasing into the side of Lumo to be able to see those things.
So that's a great transition. You should get a gig as like a radio host or something. But on the uh, on the seam side and the visibility piece, like why is visibility so important for you guys with 5 people taking care of 1,500? And on top of that, you said seam was kind of almost too much. Like what was the issue of too much coming in? Why couldn't you respond to stuff via the seam?
First off, when we set our seam up, it took about 6 months to get it tuned and make it where it's real usable. I know today they've gotten a lot better in that. It's a lot quicker process, but you have to know what's noise, what's not the noise. You have to know what's real, what's not real. And then once you can finally get through, you know, even some of your own applications will set that off. So you have to be careful with that. So after we filtered through all that, then, you know, 7, 8 months later, we're starting to get data in and we're like, oh, you know, like passwords in the clear. But to respond to everything all the time, it gets out of hand. It's very difficult to do because sometimes, I mean, you know, a scene packet's not very clear. It gives you a source and a destination. It doesn't really tell you what was done. You got to see the final action of it all. So you got to do a lot of investigating and dealing with
So
people and stuff like that.
right. So I mean, a sim, if not, like you said, if you don't feed and care for that beast correctly, it can get
Yes.
unwieldy pretty quick, right?
And big and unmanageable.
It gets expensive as well. I mean, there's a cost that gets associated with those. My one of my worst stories is I ran a SOC at a different organ. We spent almost $800,000 on getting our sim to do what we wanted it to do. At the end of the day, we wound up punting it for the exact reasons you're talking about of it. It just gave us too much stuff and not enough insider context. And that kind of leads me to the question on with visibility and with what you're doing via Lumu. Do you feel like you're getting real context out of it and that's what's actually making the difference? Is it the picture that you're getting or the ability to know what's going on and respond to it in kind without the deluge of data that you can't leverage?
But you know, with a new product, when we first jumped on board, we were skeptical. We won't lie about it. You know, we're like, is this really going to be real? Is it going to work like they say it's going to work? And honestly, it did. The alerts, we didn't get a lot at first, and we are like, okay, are just things broken? But then, as more and more data came in and different things started happening, we were able to do it. So the alerts we got, they were real. We could handle it a little bit better. The cool thing is there's a lot of applications in there that'll automate that process. So a lot of things now we get the alert, but it's already handled automatically by sending a block list to a firewall or uh, to the antivirus that's on our desktop. So
Has the better visibility also given you insight into what within your stack is or is not either operationally valuable or maybe even a misconfiguration? Because when you see more things and you have more insight, you might notice like this thing is really not doing anything for us. We should maybe reallocate some of that budget.
no, one of the real-time things that we actually had to do is one of our departments is our animal services department, and they had a kitty cam, which it's nothing fancy. All you get to see is cats, but it's a big deal, I guess, to people like watching cats. I got better things to do. I don't have to watch cats all day, but it was doing some weird traffic, and we weren't sure what it was. We ended up being able to use the Lumu, and they were able to send us. We actually had to see the packets on it though this time, and even though you can't see the packets with the Lumu, like a full blown SIEM, if you need them, they usually respond within 24 hours, and that's why we ended up getting it. We seen that it was a there was an NTP protocol running wild, and it was causing all kinds of headaches, and it was really bugging out that network over there for some reason. So we were able to, hey, here's the problem, and a web guy that wrote the app. He went in there, fixed it, put the NTP where it was supposed to be, and voila, everything started working and jiving. It
Well,
was kind of neat.
that's really crazy because I mean that's that's almost like an IT solution that was kicked off by a kind of anomaly that you noted, and then you were able to actually get an application fixed, which is
Mhm.
NTP for those that aren't aware, like that it's a timing thing, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So seeing that and then being able to really fix the problem, I mean, that's exponentially valuable. It's I think one of the problems we've had with SIM technology and kind of the stuff we were marketed to as better visibility back a few years ago. It was visibility for the sake of visibility. It wasn't actually capability that was enabled with visibility. Is that fair in your opinion?
Yeah. It's a lot of overload. You get alerts and you're like, okay, well, that's Team Viewer or that's our remote software. And you're just like, it's not a big bad thing. So you're back to tuning it again, and if a new software package comes on, it's constant
Right.
work.
Yeah. I mean, it is literally feeding the beast, kind of. You're just sitting there almost back to the military days, right, of tweaking the knobs to make sure that you have it dialed in correctly.
Yep.
Let's kind of go a little bit further down that. So within the context of the problem that the sim created, what was the use case for Lumu when you immediately brought it in? Was it to completely remove the sim or was it to age off? Like, how did you approach that? Because you had an investment there and you found a better solution, but how did you do that? And what would be the advice you'd give to somebody that's looking to move to this type of offering?
Well, the SIEM that we had, we really liked it. The problem was it got bought out by another company, and then the support just wasn't there. Every time we had to do any other reconfiguring on it, it's like, the database was already huge, but they always wanted to reset the data. I like looking at trending data. So when you keep resetting my data, my trending data is gone.
Mm.
And, again, it's a lot of work to go in there, reset data, then make sure everything's talking back. And then when you didn't, you not only did you have to reset your data, but you had to reset your subnets, and it just was crazy. So, when we were looking at Lumu and they stepped up, that the simplicity of the install, it was the tech gave us a little virtual machine. We put it on there. We put an IP address on it, and pretty much that was it. We pointed some of our firewalls at it, and everything else was handled through the GUI. And we're like, wait, this it's got to be something wrong with it. It's almost too easy. So that was the process of replacing it. And then the more and more that you got into it, it just was very cool. The whole process, being able to step through it and being able to see the different things. And then now I'm only getting good data. I don't have to see all that noise and filter through a million packets to get to what I actually need.
Do you think that the capability that Lumis put in front of you, is this something that you would say you have to be a hardcore 25-year super ninja network engineer to make work, or is this something you could turn, your regular sort of soccer network engineer employee on? And the reason I'm asking that is because everybody talks in the space about how much how hard it is to get people. But if you have the right technology, the people stuff is really more solved with tech.
Yeah, I think setting it up, leave it to your network people and your security people. But after once it's set up, it's super easy to use. The GUI interface is self-explanatory. The way that things are divided up. Speaking of a cat, my cat wants to come over here and play, of course, during the video session. But
Right.
the that's it, we've had people on our team that some can read packets and some can't, and they really like the way that the interface is done on the Lumu. They actually make sense of it, so they actually can work off of it. So that's a hey, that's just something less that I have to handle. So I was like, okay, great. And we actually do split the duties because with me dealing a lot with the web, I usually will deal with anything with the web names in it, and then they deal with anything with the IPs in it. So
Okay. So I mean, it fits well into your overall architecture, the strategy you're putting in place, even the operational side of what you guys are doing. Like the usually technology disrupts that whole schema. Sounds like what you've done here with Lumu has pretty much aligned with it and also enabled you to keep going forward the way that you want to. That's a fair statement, right?
yeah, it definitely for sure.
Which is always good. I mean, that's it's kind of weird in cyber that we have such amazing tech, but a lot of times the amazing tech that we bring in winds up kind of making us go like, we've got a problem. And no one wants to bring a problem in. You want to bring in solutions. So that's a pretty interesting thing. It looks like we've got a CPE question up here. The main objective was achieving visibility, which makes sense. I mean, I would ask the question here. You see it says achieve visibility, save money, save time. If you're doing visibility better, it's probably pretty logical to go, we are over time saving money, correct?
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, the it cost a little bit more than the seam that we had, but you're getting a better product. The visible, like with the visibility, the ease of use, the applications, all that stuff was, like I said, I was skeptical, but
Yeah. Imagine that a skeptical cybersecurity person. What are the odds,
and it worked. That's
right?
so then the confidence boost goes up in it, and then it's just one less thing that I have to babysit all day.
Which is great because I mean that does save time and money because I mean you guys, you people that are doing the job, like y'all are a finite resource that does require food and sleep and money and all those things. So you being able to do more with less is definitely beneficial as well. Let me move this out of here and we'll go into the next one. So response automation, we've kind of talked about this, but I wanted to really drive down into the piece of as far as when you see something in a sim, typically, like you said earlier, that means a lot of forensic work and that means a lot of analysis and often paralysis analysis. Whereas what you're doing with this ability to automate response, you can actually fix the problem. And it can be some of them, especially, I mean, I've been a user of Lumu. Some of them can be just a couple of clicks and you're off to the races.
Yeah, the
And I mean,
automated response is it's amazing. You can see on the screen just to the right of it, it'll tell you the ones. So any app that you have and an incident comes in, it'll show you the app that auto responded to it. And again, going back and checking it, you get the confidence that it's actually putting it into it, which was really neat. And new apps keep coming out every day. I go in there every once in a while, you'll get an email from them saying, "Hey, there's a new app." But then when you go in there, there's new ones that, and you're like, "Oh, more candy." So you're like a kid in a candy store, and you're like, "Hey, more stuff we get to try out."
I
So it's
mean,
pretty neat.
yeah, I mean, and they've been pushing really heavily on their ability to integrate and operationalize response capabilities across applications and technologies and those types of things. How has this fit into your stack overall? Has there been much kind of reconfiguring stuff, or pretty much you're able to put it in there, let it do its thing, and offer some connections and then go?
the, the simplicity is there. The apps, they usually, most of them on most of these new things, like for Malwarebytes, you get to create an API and a key. So all I had to do is come into the app, connected the two, and then data started flowing through it. That's the simplicity of it. Inside, it may be a little bit more difficult, but it's not overwhelming. You just point the logs at it and say, "Hey, show me your logs," and you go in there and you're like, wow. All I know is I don't have to read that stuff every day. and going through thousands and thousands of lines to try and find the one that's really useful. Even though it tries to give you the one, you still got to see a little bit of the traffic in it. And to be able to have all that automated, and then not only automated, but done completely for you so that you can just go there and go, okay, it's done. And you're like, hey, well, now what am I supposed to do for the rest of the day? I'm going to pull up the kitty cam and watch the cats.
Right? Yeah. And so I guess the speed is something folks are always asking about. We have like MTTR and all the other sort of static data points that people use to say, what the response looks like for the automated side. How much faster are you able to respond with this automated capability than you were doing it the old way? Is it hours or days or minutes?
It's fairly minutes for the most part, depending upon what we're doing. It's nice having that email pop up. And the cool thing is it's fairly quick. The alert comes in because we have a couple other things that are monitored with the state, and then you'll get the Luma will come in, and then the state one comes in, and you go, ha, Luma beat you this time. And most of the time it is Luma's out in front. You'll get it, and you'll say, okay, so if you're busy, the alert popped up, give it some few minutes, because if there are any other guys will become trickling in behind, and then you got to stop everything that you're doing and look at it because now CISA said it's the same thing, and now the state's barking at it as well. So it really depends on the alert itself, and after a while, you get to see the alerts that come in, and whether you have to jump or you don't have to jump right away.
And, I'd like to point out too for people, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, but the fact that this also says take action or need some help, and you can see that it says email, report, and export like that for those folks that have sat in the SOC or done the work. Those are the things you always have to have. And here it's all just available. All you got to do is click it and use it. The help stuff, the response is actually really, really quick most of the time. So how have you leveraged those things? And like, wouldn't that be an additional problem if you didn't have that in one sort of resource?
Yeah, definitely. The neat again, another neat thing about it, when you get the alert that comes in, there's I think 3 or 4 tabs on the bottom of it. One of them is like a threat research that'll show you where maybe it's came up in the news before and a couple other things. I usually jump right straight to the meat and potatoes one where the threat's actually at. And then it'll show you, sometimes it'll send you a little packet snippet of what had happened, but it'll also give you links on how to fix it, some recommendations if there's something in there that's really odd. Those things, that's just things that I used to have to do, go Google it, and try and figure it out. But man, when you have all that information right there, shows you the offending machine, it'll tell you if they did anything with a file, if they managed to get a file to come down that was bad. And so you get to see a lot. Like I said, most of it's web pages. Uh, are so we just block it, and then we'll have to verify that it's in the block list, back and forth. And sometimes it'll catch a site that hit it because it's pulling off of our DNS stuff, and then you're like, okay, that's not an alert we have to look at because the web gateway already blocked it. So that's not an alert we have to jump at. But if you're a nerd and you like all that extra information, it's all in there. What's cool is like sometimes with the web link, if it's a malicious site, it'll send you the virus total or open how I think it's a spam house or various other different sites that they use that you don't even have to go look at. It's right there, all in 3 or 4 different tabs.
Yeah, and I also am a big fan of the fact that it has an operation timeline because that
Yep.
that helps when somebody starts asking the question like, "Why did you do this? Where? And how do we know this was solved?" You can go, "Well, there's a timeline, and this happened here, and here's how we go." And I mean, I've seen folks that have used that to basically respond to questions from leadership because they're not, like you said, they're not the geeks like us. They need to see something where it's pretty well written up. Let's see. So we had one more question here for you CPE folks. So what did you actually replace at Alachua? I keep screwing that up. I said it 50 times, Alachua, but yes, it was the SIM. But the good thing is there's capabilities that fit in here well for a variety of use cases. That being said, let's move on. So synchronizing the stack. Most stacks from organizations, especially state and local and Fed, are not well synchronized. They're typically kind of this like Frankenstein of on-prem, off-prem legacy tech that's been wired together and duct tape and baling wire and doing its thing. For the operational capabilities and for the optimizing your stack, like how does Lumu help you do that in your particular organization?
It it's been really nice because it with the automation processes that are set up in it with the apps that we use, it's just there. It's super easy to use, super easy to set up. So like I know with some of this stuff with the state that we have to do, they'll send you this config file and you're looking at it and going, is this even English? And then they want you to copy and paste it into uh I don't even know what you want to call it, but it's like I think you called it a legacy piece of equipment. It's really a beast, and you're like, well, where do I enter this code in at to get it to run? And then you tie it all together, and if you forgot a comma or you copied an extra space, it's just so much of a nightmare. Whereas, especially with a lot of the stuff being in the cloud and this being in the cloud itself, being able to pass the data is just super simple. There's no reconfiguring 99 firewalls. That one piece that we set up inside was the only we set up three of them because of to load balance it so that we're not overloading it. So if we got at 60%, we'd fire up another machine and have it to do it. So we've got our VPN pointing to one and that firewall, and we've got our constitutionals firewall pointing to another one. So, and man, it all goes up in the cloud, and then we get all the alerts back from it. And I don't have to read millions and millions of packets every day.
Yeah, and it's from the other side of that coin when you're dealing with this, it's actually better for organizations to have a synchronized stack because that way you're not responding kind of piecemeal. Like you were saying earlier, if you've got this sort of insight and capability, you've got the total picture and you can go, did my firewall do what it was supposed to do? Did my email thing do what it's supposed to do? I think there's a lot of value in being able to validate the controls and technology that you have are actually providing value. Is there anything that stuck out to you since you guys have started putting Lumu in place that's been like, now we know that this is actually doing what we wanted it to do, or the value that we get from X is kind of made more aware.
Yeah, when we set up our proof point to point to it, we've had proof point for a while, and we're like, okay, what's it really missing if it's missing anything? So once we were able to get that connect to point back into it, I think it was Sebastian was one of the techs. I was asking him, I said, okay, where's the correlation data? He goes, that's because you guys are blocking it all. So we were like, okay, well, that'll kind of boost our confidence in it. We trusted the proof point, but you didn't have nothing to really say it was doing what it was supposed to be doing. So once we made those two connections with the email and we're like, okay, and we haven't seen any correlation data, which is good. So
Yeah, I mean that's it's also interesting too because in cyber everybody says, well, how do you know you're doing your job well in cyber? It's like, well, if nothing happens, I've actually done it right. And proving a negative is kind of one of the most uncomfortable things anybody wants to do. But to your point, being able to see that you had proof point and there was, something that could be done to kind of make it a little more operationally valuable, like that helps you basically validate that what you're doing is making a difference and you can track down where there might be a problem or a misconfiguration as well.
mhm,
Let's see.
definitely.
So here's another one for you CPE people, because everybody wants are CPEs. What did you want to do with your stack? Really consolidate and synchronize. I mean, those two things kind of go hand in hand, right? You kind of consolidate typically, and then you usually hope that it synchronizes. You found a way to do it where those things kind of occur as you're doing the process.
Mhm.
Are you planning on offloading anything in the future, because of the insights that you're getting from Lumu, or have you seen anything where you just like, "We've figured out that this is really not, operationally valuable for us?"
No, we really like Lumu and what it's doing here for us at the county. So anything that it can tie into it, we just look forward to the Christmas presents of the applications popping up and the the things and getting the alerts from them just to be able to see all that it's neat again, just being able to see it all correlated and I didn't have to correlate all that. Somebody else is doing it and just having an end product. It just you
Right.
get to be able to sit back and enjoy it for once.
So if anybody's looking to send Marty Christmas presents, send him packets. Is what I get out of this.
There we go.
Yep. Let's move on to the next one here. So in the future state, where are you guys going with your overall strategy? Like, what does it look like to evolve? Are you going to be more cloud, more on-prem, IoT, OT? Like, where will you be in the next, say, 3 to 5 years from the infrastructure side? And then I'll follow that up with, as that evolution takes place, what will you do to change your strategy?
Yeah, I mean, we tried to avoid going to the cloud, but you can do it all you want to, but the force is strong with that one. So you're going to the cloud whether you want to or not. It took us a while to decide to do all that. And so that's where we really rely on a lot of these perimeter devices and stuff reporting. And if it's misconfigured, is something coming through, maybe something we missed, because you can best guess everything that you want to and have everything you think you got every nut screwed on right and every bolt is tightened down. But when you get to it, you may miss stuff. So it's nice being able to have all these alerts and having the data looked at not only by your eyes but somebody else's eyes, and then filtering it in if it matches a footprint that's already out there that we may even be unaware of at the time. And then with us going in the future, yeah, it's definitely cloud based. Uh, it's fun when we have to deal with some of the FDLE stuff and the certification, but they seem to have given us the approval. They didn't bark at the Lumu. They haven't barked at the proof point and a couple of other things that we've had. So that's where we're at. I wouldn't fight it. I would just go with it. I know it, think it's less secure, but it's just as secure, if not more, because you have the people that have that cloud environment are invested on keeping that safe and up and running as well.
So really, you'll be more cloud probably, and then this will help you evolve into that space. Do you think you guys will wind up getting more Lumu capabilities as those come available? Like, is this going to be where you pivot your strategy and your stack around, you think?
It would depend what they bring out, but yeah, I mean, so far everything that they've offered, and I mean, we came in, it was pretty basic. There wasn't very much to it. I think there was, I don't even know if the apps were in it initially. And if it was, it might only been one or two, and all the cool ones that we couldn't afford anyway. So it
Right.
was nice to see them expand that. And now there's quite a few apps in there, and a lot of the main streamlined ones that most people would be familiar with or have.
Yeah, I mean, they've got folks that are just banging away at this stuff all day, and I mean, I know because I'm on one of the chairs, like they're doing a bunch of innovations that I think are going to keep driving that forward. So on the follow-on side of this whole thing, like future state, do you feel that you've made a categorical capability shift with moving to this that's put you in a better defensive posture? Or do you think I mean, there's always more work to be done, but in the context of Lumu solving your problems, you feel like you've really made kind of like light year leaps with this capability. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, after testing all the ones that we did and coming out of what we came into and stepping into this, yeah, it does free up a lot of time. It allows me to be able to focus on other things, not having to worry, is it running? Is it collecting data? Is it not collecting data? What's coming in? Is this alert real? How much data do I have to collect to verify that the data is real? Is this, is this a false alert? A lot of that's already taken care of. So we can go into the incident, and all that stuff's just spoon fed to you. And not that it's making us any lazier. You do still verify the validity of it, but it's nice to have it. And then your confidence level goes up the more and more that you use it and you see that it's correct. So
Well,
yeah, I mean, it saves us a lot of time. And when
that's what
you
you
save
want. Time
time,
is money, right?
mhm,
Yeah. Uh, the last question I have on that is from the perspective of dealing with compliance requirements and dealing with legislative requirements, having these types of capabilities are going to align you to be able to answer those questions more succinctly. I would think. Is that what you see here? Is you have a better kind of line of taking care of new requirements and new line items and the other stuff that comes from compliance and legislation because of the context you're able to get?
yeah. And every once in a while, like I said, they do request the logs. Somebody auditor with it maybe above us that's looking into it, or the state will want to see that log data. So we just request it and they give it to us for that time frame. And then like I said, it's everything. We usually, most time we request it, it's been less than 24 hours that they have that data in hand. So anybody that's asking, if Dilly had asked for some stuff at one time, and I think we were doing an internal investigation on something that came up. It was, you know how you get all these alerts. So we had an alert come in and somebody goes, did this happen to us? So we had to say, well, we don't have the logs. So let's ask Luma. And they searched for all the logs and come back and said, well, nothing. So we're like, okay.
Yeah, it's nice to have that validation that you've solved the problem before the problem even got to you. So, well, number one, Marty, thank you for so much for letting me grill you with questions here. But number two, I want to just see if we've gotten any questions that have kind of come in from the cheap seats there. I think really the biggest one that occurs to me was, let me make sure I phrase this correctly. So, the tools that you have are working together better based on this integration. Is there any one tool that you're kind of seeing like doesn't fit well into this optimized stack that you have? Is there would you if you were to tell Lumu like I really wish you guys would take care of X, like what would X be? Or is there no X, which is also a fair statement?
Yeah, we still like to see Malwarebytes put into it. I know we got the email that one time that said Malwarebytes was coming out, and I'll keep looking for that gift to show up in my packet thing. But they, uh, I think we've had one thing where we had to have one of the techs help us with the API, and they were able to get the data into it. And so, if you're good at API stuff, which I'm not all the time, I need a little bit of help from time to time on it. It's you probably won't have as much problems as I had, but if you're not, then they have tech support. You tell them what you want and what you want to integrate, and they've always been working with us on that. So it's nice having to go to one pane of glass instead of 50 panes of glass to see what's going on.
Right. I think the last question that came in that's probably kind of a double-edged sword, right? Is do you think that these capabilities that you're getting, the gain from the technology of Lumu, does that mean over time your budget's going to get better because you can free up some of those human resources? I mean, or are you guys just going to keep kind of trucking along with the way you're approaching it, and people are going to be doing people things because you have work for them to do?
Well, there's 5 of us on the security team, so we're always going to be spread thin. I don't know if it'll ever free up people persons for us on that way. That would be a tough question. I don't think it'll free up our people. It depends how big your office is. You could probably find, if you had 50 people in there, yeah, you could definitely, you might want to get rid of it because it's going to probably save some extra time somebody reading something and go, no, we want our people, but I don't see anybody ever saying that.
Yeah, I mean, CapEx, OpEx is it's always cheaper to feed the electrons than feed the humans, which is the
Yeah.
reality of what goes on here. Well, great. Well, Carousel folks, I want to kind of kick things back over to you. Marty, thank you so much for this. I definitely get a lot. I mean, from one network SOC guy to another one, always good talking to you.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chase and Marty, for your participation today. And I just wanted to thank all of our attendees for joining us. And we hope you found this webcast informative and helpful to you and your organization.